but there we go. Yep. So welcome to the QE Tools workshop. This is the first Friday of a month, and as usual, what we want to do there is talk about our roadmap. So it's the SUSE QE Tools roadmap beginning in 2023-05, so the beginning of May. The last time we had the roadmap discussion was in March. So what we are going to cover is 2 months worth of tasks that we have resolved. And then afterwards, I will show you what's currently in plan for SUSE to work on. So as usual, you can find all that data if you follow our team wiki page on progress-open-SUSE.org project/QA. And then there's the tools wiki page. There's one more recent addition which I would like to highlight. In the section Our Common User Base, you can learn some example uses of our products. For example, where are OpenQA instances set up, where is OpenQA? And of course, for long, have been used within SUSE for developing SUSE as well as Lee. It's also used for some other products. It's used within Fedora. The recent addition is Alma Linux. So Alma Linux is now also using OpenQA for testing. And that public, freely accessible instance looks shiny, a bit customized. So that's also what's possible with OpenQA. And I don't know more about it than what you can see on the page, so feel free to, walk around and explore on your own. Now the section after that, how we work. So this also mentions closed within last 60 days, which is exactly the time period that we want to look at. So those are all the things that we had been working on. And if we take a look in total, that's what I always like to point out is that we get a rough estimate, like how many tickets do you work on? If I would open a ticket in your project, when can I usually expect that to be worked on, and how quickly are tickets being worked on? So we can see 60 days, 120 tickets. That meets exactly our average, or let's say more like the lower bound of the expected range. So we have roughly 2 tickets per calendar day, not per workday, per calendar day. There had been the Easter break in between, so maybe that explains why there is a bit lower rates. I would expect that the next period where we can ramp up a little bit more. However, there are also some interesting events coming up, like an internal workshop just before the open source. So we will see if that turns the number higher or lower. If we take a look at the categories, we have 16 OpenQA bugs, 20 feature requests that we worked on, so that leaves it more or less on pair. We have quite some infrastructure work showing up as ticket category infrastructure from various different trackers. So there are internal trackers, OpenQA specific, non-OpenQA. Things I'd like to highlight is that what we mentioned the last time is we had 5 sagas in our roadmap. In sagas, as our top level task aggregation, showing us the representation of our plan for the next months or maybe years. And we managed to, we completed 2 sagas. I think it was 2. One being stable and updated non-chemo backends for SLE validation. And that includes, for example, stable non-chemo backends. So what did we do in particular in the last period? Well, not that much actually, because I think we I just closed that at the beginning of the last reporting period. What the current state is that all backends that we have in OS Audienst are properly covered with unit tests, and they are, depending on the specific backend, they are of better or worse code quality. I would say more or less all are very stable. And so there are hardly any known issues or bugs. There are certainly many points where one could improve backends. And now I'm inviting all of you with the better test coverage that we have. You are welcome to contribute additions in the way of features, and we will be happy to support you. For example, if on a pull request bring some ideas, then we can help you with that. And there had been additions from contributors outside our team, which I appreciate very much. So that's good. About let's see. About infrastructure, yeah, there had been some work related to our physical move of machines from a former location to a new location. Now within the new SUSE Nuremberg office location, Franken campus, I would say we are very well set up, and we are ready to, you know, bring in new machines or additions to the machines as necessary. We all know how to maintain that. We solved some problems. We have access to the different components within the network. If there are any kind of network related problems, then we can, I think, help you better than in the past with investigating also those problems. Let's see if anything sticks to the eye now. That looks good. Yeah, that was related to structure. Let's see on the other side. So the bugs that we worked on, there we have the worker cache on OpenQA workers, and there was a problem that sometimes for various reasons, and that could always happen, the worker cache services are unable to fulfill requests within a reasonable time. And this is when some months or years ago, a measure was built in to hard fail the jobs rather than endlessly waiting for something which will never happen. The problem is that that was happening too often, so that jobs are incompleting. And Dimster, you know about the problem where, you know, maybe at the fresh start of a week, the workers have been freshly restarted, the cache is empty, a new snapshot of Tumbleweed comes in, maybe something else in parallel, and then suddenly you have a bunch of incomplete jobs. That's certainly not how it should be. So we worked on that. This is just one step that we worked on to ensure that incomplete jobs with that are properly restarted. We are currently working or planned to improve that further, so that in the end we should even not run into that condition of cache service full incomplete jobs at all, by having multiple layers where we could gracefully handle situations. Like maybe we just need to wait a bit longer when we can actually see that the download is happening. It's just slow because of another party in the network that we can control and such. Another thing just below there, OpenGate default container should provide a certificate for starting. I would like to show in our documentation. So we go to open.qa, documentation. Various ways, depending on your preference, single HTML or PDF or individual documents, doesn't matter. I prefer the single HTML file. And then it says OpenGate installation guide. There are various ways to install and deploy OpenGate. And there had been some minor changes in that part. So there's bootstrapping, and there's OpenKey in container using systemd nspawn. There's also a separate container-based setup, which can, of course, then also be used on any system that runs Docker, or within this example, Podman. And you have this one example command line that is a little bit more complicated, because what it tells you is how to forward ports, which of course is necessary if you want to run OpenKey to the web UI. Then you have to choose a port. So that's how one could run the OpenKey web UI from container simply with one single command. So you can copy paste that and run it with Podman. And then once the startup is finished, the web UI should be accessible via those URLs. And of course, that can be tweaked and changed and integrated in complicated Docker Compose setups and so on. This does provide HTTPS with an internal report certificate. If you want to provide an external certificate, then this is certainly also possible. And this is also what we show in the example here, where you see the path pointing to configuration files and certificate files from site storage. What else? So, yep. Let's see what hides below there. So you can see, of course, what we have is like some reactive version infrastructure related things that we react on when it is blurred. We defined GSOC project proposals, multiple. And just yesterday evening, the accepted projects for mentoring were announced. Unfortunately, we did not get any grant, meaning that for those projects, we can't enter those. Yeah, rest is good. I would go into the plan, or is there anything that you would like to ask or mention about resolved tickets? Or like not? Okay, so the top level view. So this defines what we work on the highest level. We have 3 sagas, which I think is the reasonable number. And 2 of those tasks had been there and before. So actually, let's go over them in the order from oldest youngest. So we have the saga, which we had to put on hold for a rather long time, about full version control awareness within OpenKey. And now we are pushing that forward again with multiple steps within. So what does that mean? That in the end, I would like to have OpenKey support something like just point OpenKey to any Git repository, which includes the complete test definitions, not only the test code, the test modules, but also the complete test schedule. And then there should not be a need to specify anything anymore in OpenKey, in that OpenKey instance itself, right? So that's one goal that we want to support. Another goal is that if you have a working setup, consider OpenKey, OpenSUSE.org, or OpenKey SUSE.de, where we use mostly OS Ordnance Distri OpenSUSE, and you want to debug something, you want to develop something, then you can already, of course, schedule tests based on a Git repository, like go back to the last good, try it out with a first batch, try out a new development branch, but they are not that connected, so they should be more connected so that this is more efficient. You don't need to reclone the Git repository all the time. We have a clear reference to the Git hash in every single job that was executed, regardless if it was production job or a development job. So that's what we want to do as part of that saga about full version control awareness. It also includes the goal that if you create a pull request on GitHub, then OpenGate tests should be automatically triggered and provide you feedback, like they give you back the result of real OpenGate test results, not just unit code test results. Some examples are already there. So let me show you. If we go to the OpenGate GitHub project, then there had been an addition, mostly by Dominic Heidler and Santiago Zarate for the idea that we have this cool OpenGate badge, which is actually pointing to OpenGate test results. And you can say it says uploading. And if you follow that link, then you can see that this is a live result from the latest OpenGate test that was triggered 23 minutes ago. And it's correct. It is finished right now and it's uploading. What it is actually uploading is, well, you can consider that an OpenGate appliance. So there is a QCar file. If you would just start that QCar file, then you have a current tumbleweed, like the latest snapshot plus latest version of OpenGate. So we want to continue from there. The next saga, up-to-date and current QA setup in SUSE. I already mentioned some infrastructure-related tasks. So this is just a necessity to work on because there is restructuring going on within SUSE. Let's say SUSE Nuremberg and Prague locations. Right now, there is a new data center being set up in Prague. So this is also where some workload related to our QA setup will move, and we will need to support that migration, make sure that everything works, set up new OpenGate instances, workers there, connect to the old existing ones in Nuremberg, and so on. So this will, guide our infrastructure-related work for the coming months as well. And the third one is a new saga, which is OpenQA for SUSE customers. So this is a new thing that came up, and that one I would like to highlight in particular. Let's take a look at it. The goal is that OpenQA can be provided as part of a potential product offering, so that we have a complete development, the complete development workflow covered. So, we have SLE as base product is used, which is built using OBS, and then we have OBS itself building products, which is also marketed as customers. And then we have OpenQA, which can be considered part of that a bundle to validate the. So far, we have mentioned 2 acceptance criteria. You can see those as examples, so not fully complete yet, where we want to have the web UI and worker, which should be continuously built, tested, and published on latest 3. For now, plus package hub, meaning that the complete OpenQA offering should be ensured to work on a SLE based. And the second one, which is mentioned here, that Python-based OpenQA tests are usable for testing. Now, Python is supported as a language if you want to develop OpenQA tests. Certainly, it might have some rough edges because it's not that heavily used as the Perl-based test modules. So it's certainly something that we can look into to harden. There are various epics included in that saga. For example, one is OpenQA on SLE and package hub. Meaning, so what does that mean effectively? Well, we have OpenQA running on Leap. As you know, Leap is equivalent to SLE also on the level of binary packages after the completion of OpenSUSE Jump project. So we know that OpenQA works on SLE, right? That's not the question, but to have it part of purely not needing development repositories, it needs some work, maybe submit some packages, maybe some missing packages as dependencies. Maybe it needs some updates to existing packages as dependencies to not just fulfill all runtime dependencies, but to be stable and to fix some known issues, which we have fixed in the meantime. But so far, maybe the updates have only landed in Tumbleweed as part of the stable distribution. So the goal will be that we basically refresh the complete OpenQA offering, which is part of SLE/Leap without the need of development repository. Just to point that out, we go to softwareopensuse.org and we look for OpenQA. Then you will find it that it's just part of the official release in Tumbleweed. And that's like a very current version because we automatically test, submit, and test again OpenQA as part of Tumbleweed. This is why in our documentation, it says if you're in Tumbleweed, just install OpenQA and you're good. You don't need any additional repositories. Now for Leap, that's actually the same. It's just that's an older version and we do not yet have a streamlined process to say we update and submit any updates so that it's appearing in Leap. And as I said, that's equivalent to SLE as well. There are just different distinctions on as part of which offering of SLE will you offer it. It's that there's Package Hub, which is basically like an unsupported extra OpenSUSE repository. So that's one possibility. Another possibility would be to offer it as part of a specific SLE offering. So this is all to be ruled out as part of that saga. I would like to mention here that when people talk about OpenQA, then that often also includes OS Audience Distri OpenSUSE, which I think most of you, if not all of you, know that test distribution, which is the integral part of testing OpenSUSE and SLE, and some people even consider it part of OpenQA. So we need to make sure we understand that some people expect that OS Audience Distri OpenSUSE would also work in that environment. Now, what does that mean? That means that whenever you develop something for OS Audience Distri OpenSUSE, of course, because it's a public open source project, anyone could take that and run that also on other environments than just the one where we run it on O3 and OSD, which is effectively Leap 15.4 with all dependencies updated from development packages. And now the interesting challenge is, can we find an automatic submission pipeline, including according testing and validation, so that OpenQA plus OS Audience Distri OpenSUSE from stable packages, not only from devel OpenQA, is validated to do what it should do and work and be able to execute tests based on properly streamlined packages. And this is the goal for this saga. Do you have questions or notes about that? Okay, good. If you have some points about that, feel free to bring that up later. Now I would like to go into the backlog in detail so that you know what are we currently working on and what can we expect to happen in the future. So currently we have 93 tickets in our backlog. We have some in feedback. We recently had a problem with our code coverage analysis, which is code coverage checks missing, which slowed down our development, in particular for OpenQA, because we were missing those checks and couldn't check anymore the impact of changes that easily. Yesterday, we had a really nice mob session where we came together as a team and we found a solution that works for us. So it's fixed. This is why that's in feedback to wait how that looks like a new pull request that would come up. It does it also. Marius Kittler is working on restarting jobs in job inheritance structures where you have like a parent job that's creating an image, and then you have downstream jobs where some of them are parallel or not, and then depending on where people click with the restart button, some unexpected scenarios happen. It's always a bit challenging because depending on the specific use cases, people expect different things to happen, in particular for multi-machine tests. So that's tricky, but we identified some where we would agree that, yeah, that's really not how it should behave. Okay. There is an interesting graphical distortion happening, which has been so far only reproduced with Yast. That happens sometimes. What had been found out that this is dependent on the version of SUSE or OpenSUSE where Yast window is working on. So I think I'm trying to support there here. The most the work done here is done by Sophia. But I'm looking forward to the outcome of that. If it's really showing us if there's a problem, maybe really in Yast, maybe in Qemu, maybe in our infrastructure setup. So that will be interesting. I mentioned we have a team internal workshop that is planned to happen in place after a very long time. Some team members could never meet together physically in that kind of setup. So I'm also looking forward for that to happen just before the OpenSUSE conference in Nuremberg. We are on good progress to improve our collaboration with SUSE IT Engineering Infra, where they could help us streamline and maintain some setup where we can still contribute to. We also have full access to the according DHCP and DNS server, so we could debug something live, but still the system is managed with Salt in a proper way, also with redundancy and monitoring and such. So I think this is a really nice setup there. There's some part missing, for example, about firewall access. You might know that there had been quite some problems with the firewall during the planned restructuring work and the data center moves in the past months. And we couldn't really help you in the way which I would envision to be the best. So we are in discussion with engineering infrastructure what organizational or technical solution we can find so that we could support you better and we could immediately tell you like, oh yeah, I can see that this is blocked, or no, this is definitely not blocked, so the problem is lying elsewhere. And so we have so far one OSD production Zen worker machine, which is OpenKW5 Zen, and not all of the configuration there is fully reproducible yet. So the goal of this ticket, where I'm waiting for some feedback from then OpenQA test experts, is what is actually necessary as part of a Zen worker so that from salt, a machine could be fully recreated and we have a backup of the configuration and we have a structured way to manage the configuration. Yeah, then this was a wish from Dimster about changing the multi-build package format. I hope you have understood what is expected there, and then this was just a simple change which I prepared. What else? That's good. So what's currently in progress is we have OpenQA Investigate jobs, which had been missing on O3 and OSD since months. It's in one case, I think OSD since months, and I haven't realized that. I wasn't aware of that. Maybe nobody has mentioned that. Maybe you're not really relying on the Investigate jobs, which I think is a missed opportunity, but okay. I mean, if you can investigate jobs with other tools, that's also completely fine. Maybe you're just relying on the investigation tab and that provides you no feedback. But anyway, I would like to see the investigate jobs coming back because maybe some people would really benefit from that. And we have further cool ideas planned for those. So yeah, Tina is looking into that. Then we have OpenQA worker arm 1 and 2 arm workers for OSD. They're working completely fine, but we had a problem with the automatic recovery and we have some kind of false alerts. So we wanted to cross-check to be really sure that whenever there are problems with these arm workers, because they are not really stable, then we know that our automatic recovery, automatically reboots those. Then there is a problem with IPMI connection on that one specific worker host since some days. I'm looking into that myself. I couldn't fully reproduce the problem yet. I'm running IPMI tool overnight with 10,000 connection attempts. I do observe a fail rate of 10%, which is high. I have some ideas for improving that, but it's not as high as was in the original ticket description, which was like 95 to 99% of problems. So I'm hoping for some feedback in that regard so that we can really fix. But, there is a problem with build tags in OpenQA. Think about the group overview where you can tag builds so that they are treated as important and marked on the web UI, and the according job results are kept for longer. And that one doesn't work to tag those builds when the build tag needs to contain a colon, because we also use the colon as a special character to separate the tokens. So yeah, maybe we can find a solution there with voting. And I mentioned the version control awareness saga. This is related to that. So Marius was working on finding a native way to integrate OpenQA tests as CI checks on the level of GitHub. Basically 2 points which we would like to address. One is the nicer feedback so that it looks consistent with other checks and pull requests, that you have this little check mark icons on the bottom which immediately tell you the result. We already have that for OpenQA checks, but it is like 2 or 3 levels where you would need to click into, you go into the log file and you copy paste the URL or something, and that can be streamlined. And the second part is we would like to make sure that we can support the usual GitHub fork-based development, meaning you have a fork of the original repository, you create a pull request from that fork to the main repository, and then CI checks should be triggered. And for that, not needing, to pass around secret tokens in all the forks and then among all the contributors, we are looking into a way how to accommodate that properly. So far for the in progress things, we have two. Yeah, Yanis, go ahead.
Regarding the investigation tab.
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I haven't noticed, and I check that it's there. I just want to ask if it's possible to enable it also for all the jobs, either if they pass or fail.
Uh,
You see any?
so first, one thing is if you take a look here, there's no investigation tab because this is a
Yeah,
past job, right?
it would be nice if we have the investigation even when the
Okay,
jobs pass.
right. If we take a look at one incomplete job, then you can find this example of cache service queue fault, this annoyance, which we would like to address. The thing is, it is automatically restarted. However, we do have an investigation tab. It's very basic, but what it shows you is a last good. Let's find other examples where it should be more helpful, which are failed jobs. So let's just pick the first one. And then we go to investigation. And there you have more details. For example, you see the diff in the test distribution with all Git commits that had been going in between the last good and the first bad. You can have a link to the first bad directly so that the diff is also smaller here. And we have differences about the needles, and we have the differences past JSON. So you can maybe spot the problem source from here already.
No, my question is,
Yes.
first of all, the investigation doesn't look to me is missing.
Say again, it doesn't look one?
You said that the investigation tab wasn't there, right?
Uh,
That it
no,
was missing.
no, the investigation jobs. So we have the investigation tab that is always there for failed jobs. Second thing is what you see here. So this has been already fixed, that we have this automatic investigation jobs, so that OpenQA jobs are triggered automatically, and then they can tell you
Yeah.
based on the results, like how does it look like if we re-execute the tests with the last good build and the last good state of test, does that also fail? If yes, then it's likely another problem, which is not in the test code and not in the build, but in the settings or repositories or the infrastructure. So
Okay. So
those had been missing. But and your second point is you would like to see the investigation tab for past jobs, right?
yes, correct.
Um, we could do that, but then we have to think about what components to include and what would be the purpose of investigation on a past job.
And what is there?
Uh, why would you like to have that on past jobs?
Mm, to see what commits are, including what changes have been modified in the.
Right? But since when? If we have a past job, then we don't have a base to compare to. Maybe you just want to have the diff, but here we say diff to last good. If we have a past job, then the last good doesn't make any sense because the past job is still the last good. So
If
are you
the
thinking
last
about like a variable one where you could put in any, and you're like compare two jobs, right? Is that what you want?
the last good is gonna be the last good compared to the current one.
So then it would just be the previous one, right?
Yes.
I see. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, I will record it and I will think about it.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, then I would like to give you big tour of the next tasks to follow. So after we have completed the work for the thing that we work on, we have 32 workable ones. And now those include that we want to make use of a free PowerPC machine for O3. Currently, we do have one Power 8 machine running QEMU-based PowerPC tests on OpenGL But of course, that's a single point of failure, so we'd like to bring in some redundancy. Then we would like to run OpenGL based on SLE and Package Hub. So that's part of the bigger story, including that we have automatic tests and an automatic submission pipeline. We have typing issues in UI comments, so we do also have instabilities within the OpenGA unit tests themselves. That's one that should help. We have a spike solution, which is time-boxed to work on current OpenGA and also auto instance dependencies updated in Clean Package Hub. So while the first one focuses on the setup of this automatic submission pipeline, the second one would be to say, just make sure that what we currently have as packages within the base distribution is updated. Let's say some dependent Perl packages that we rely on, they would fulfill the runtime requirements, but maybe there's known bugs fixed in the new versions. So then we should just make sure that an update exists for all of those. Minion jobs for job hooks failed silently on O3. That's actually related to the missing OpenGA investigate jobs. Those investigate jobs, they are triggered asynchronously for every failed OpenGA job. And we would like to have those and the minion jobs themselves could execute, they could trigger that second level sub processes for the job hooks, but they didn't inform us that the hook scripts themselves failed. So this is what we look into. After that is fixed, then we can extend the use of this automatically triggered investigation jobs again, so that OpenGA Investigate would help us to identify reproducible product issues. You know, if a job fails, let's say yesterday the job in a scenario passed, and to today the scenario fails, and then we automatically trigger jobs and we check, okay, if we retry, the problem reproduce. If we go back to the last test, the problem still reproduce. If we go back to the last build and the test would pass, well, very likely that's just because of a diff in the product. So we can call that a product issue, and it is clearly reproducible. So it would be really helpful to have that information reflected in the job to tell any OpenGA reviewer if you are, if you just give OpenGA the time to do that, because I know Dimstar is a bit too fast to review jobs on his own before OpenGA has a chance to finish all those jobs. But if you're a bit slower than that, then OpenGA should have all those results ready when you're finished your early morning coffee. And then it should tell you there is a failed job. It does reproduce. Going back to the last build does fix it. Going back to last test doesn't fix it. This looks like a reproducible product issue, and then you can handle it accordingly. Phoenix?
If just as a suggestion of improving this product or this project, one of the things that OpenQA currently is missing is retrying jobs after a certain amount of time. Because what we are seeing is that if job failures are happening due to an infrastructure problem, let it be networking problem or whatsoever, and if you configure the job to be retried immediately afterwards,
Yep.
then the retry will just run into the same issue. So
Yes.
one of the things that we need in order to make, or that we would need in order to make this and other tools more usable in this aspect, is to tell OpenQA, hey, please try this job, but do not retry this after or before waiting for at least an hour.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. I think you are what you mentioned when you say you configure jobs to retry. I assume you mean like with the retry variable, right?
Or any other means.
Yeah. So what we already have there is where we can specify the number of maximum retries with a description. I was thinking if we can try to also configure more here, something like the retry interval or some kind of, well, you can go as fancy as you like with exponential backoff, right? Where you would say, okay, retry it once immediately. Well, if that still doesn't work, then wait longer and longer between each retry, because maybe that brings you out of that time window where the network is having a problem, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yep, very
But
good idea. Thank you.
we don't need something like exponential backoff at this one typically, because the jobs are being scheduled overnight. Already the first attempt can be postponed by at least an hour just to avoid the often happening problems with SCC or network or
I know,
download
but you might
tracking or
understand
whatsoever.
that uh, talking in general about OpenAI, for some people, the immediate retry would help. And for some people or for some cases, a longer retry would be appreciated. So what you have in mind is I can wait for 1 hour. That's completely fine. I know that Dimster helped me out there, but I think normally you do not want to wait an hour, right?
Now, usually after I check why they're failing, most of them are just random fails because repo not synced was the case I just had this morning. It
Yeah.
starts slightly too quick and the repo is not there yet. There's no reason to wait for an hour because usually 2 minutes later is already good.
Yeah, right. So I'm saying there is no silver bullet here, but certainly something where we can try to tweak it a little bit and give you guys the possibility to configure something which is scenario specific. Okay, so I'm noting that down. Allowed to specify wait interval in retry or more fancy. Yep, cool. Thank you for that idea. Yep. Then some more ARM workers. Then the story where I would like to continue with the OS order inst wheels. So the plugin structure where we can have some components from big test distribution like test OS order inst history OpenSUSE pulled out and put into a separate repository. We have still one left from the UEFI OVMF upgrade, which happened last year. There were multiple problems. One was with the display resolution, another one was with the boot entry after reboot, and that's a third one where it's not possible to switch back to a text terminal. So that's something to look into. UAMBot comments, improve alerts, NSD template, anything fancy. Some workers set up. Yeah, we mentioned the investigation tab. So Tina has found some instances where the investigation tab, like endlessly computing. Maybe you had also been hitting those instances, but haven't reported it yet. So we also found that now. Of course, depending on the job and the last good, OpenGay is dynamically computing results. and we have found cases where it doesn't compute within a reasonable time and you run into timeouts. And also there seems to be some missing data in the comparison reference. So we will look into that. And then there's one older story which I would like to bring back, which is full OpenGate test development, maintenance, administration from browser without the need of a local terminal. So the goal there is that, if there's anybody finding OpenQA, that you do not need a local terminal. That should be the goal. Actually, that's completely possible. It's just that, maybe it's a bit like a hidden way how to do that. There are different ways to do that. It's just that what I would like to see that is covered properly in documentation so that everybody should be able to find that and say, like, if that fits your personal work environment best, then yeah, sure, go for it. All right, that's it. That's what I wanted to show about the results and the plan. Any more notes, questions, feedback? Doesn't look like it. So that's cool. Then let me just mention what will come next in our workshop topics. So for the next week, my proposal is that we continue with the backend code walkthrough. Again, yeah, so the next one should be SWORD. And again, I can do that in my very, let's say, rather shallow way, because I'm not hardly an expert with the SWORD backend. What I would just do with you, walk through the code and understand it, what it is doing, and explain how much I can grasp it. If there's anyone that feels like you are better suited to present that, that would be cool. So I'm looking forward for anyone speaking up, and then you can lead that. All right. So with that, I will leave you to it. Thank you all for your attendance and hope again next time. Bye.